morning, my dear wee bookworms and Fairy Belle fans. Just in case you're new, my name is Madeline and this is Belle. She should be here somewhere. We run a little children's bookshop in a small town called Warren Point, which is in Northern Ireland, and every Saturday at 11:30 AM we do a little story time session here on Facebook. Now, before we start, well, basically, Belle and I, we've been missing something very much, and that is arts and crafts. We used to do arts and crafts sessions on Saturdays in our little bookshop. So every Saturday we would do another little project with the children. And this is why, well, Belle had this really fantastic idea this week. She told me, or she asked me, to create little arts and crafts projects that we can talk about, or that I can talk about every week here on this live stream. So, and I got really excited, and I actually thought about a project that I always wanted to do, and now have an actual reason to do it, and that is this here. Yes, it looks a bit funny, but this is a fairy house, or that's what it's going to be. Belle was actually quite pleased with my efforts. I wrote a little blog post about this as well, so that's going to be on, or it already is on our website in the blog section. And this is such a really fun and exciting sort of project to do, especially at the moment during the lockdown. And all you need plastic. Oh, we've got a couple of problems here today. No, all you need are a few plastic bottles. So I kind of cut them up, and then you glue them together. So you need a glue gun as well, and tin foil. You use the tin foil to sort of sculpture your roof and your windows and your doors and so on. And yeah, that's the stage I'm at the moment. This is masking tape, just in case you're wondering. So yeah, you can read all about this on our website in the blog post section, just in case. And then next week, hopefully, if everything goes well, this is gonna look really well. Hopefully, it's gonna be painted, and yeah, we'll see. But I'll keep you posted this week. So yep. That's that. And so yeah, let's see what Fairy Belle has been up to this week. Ooh. So today, lovely golden letter. Ooh. There you go. Are you ready? Right, okay. Dear keepers of the magical world of books, how are you, my keen readers and arts and craftlers? The Fairy Kingdom's headquarters told us that this week's reading results were enormously fantastic. Almost every child on this planet read at least one book this week. Think about all the millions and billions of children that have enjoyed a magical story. How reader-tastic. A big thank you to all of you, keepers of the magical world. Our fairy dust has worked its magic. The newspaper, the Fairy Times, also reported that this week loads of children busily painted pictures, built sandcastles and crafted the most beautiful works of art. What do you think about our new fairy-tastic arts and crafts idea? Oh, I'm so very excited about the new fairy house. Mommy and Daddy said that they will use it as their new summer residence at We Bookworms. If you're also going to make a fairy house this week, you could send us a photo of it. We would love to see your creations. I also know a few fairies that would be interested in moving in. There you go. Oh, by the way, we received fairy-tastic photos of your book nooks last week. Thank you so much, my dear readers. Yesterday, you should have seen Madeline's kitchen after she tried to make paper clay mashed potato for the fairy house. Oh yeah, that's right. I actually tried to make paper clay at home, but it didn't really work. Can you remember our great fairy cake bake-off? Madeline's kitchen looked almost exactly as messy as our fairy kitchen after the competition. I told her countless times to add a pinch of fairy dust to the mixture, but she didn't want any fairy dust in her paper clay. I do not understand why. Because fairy dust can be quite dangerous, to be honest. Once she left the kitchen, because Rupert the careless cat was noisily complaining about his empty food bowl, I took matters into my own hands. Yes, I sprinkled some fairy dust into the paper clay mixture. Oh, it became the most bestest fairy paper clay mixture that you could imagine. After Madeline had come back, I told her not to mix the mixture again. Mixing mixtures too much is never a good idea. But she wouldn't listen, and the paper clay mixture got far too dizzy. Little and huge drops of screaming paper clay dough flew out of the mixing bowl across the kitchen. The little dough balls were shouting happily, "Yay!" or "I can fly, I can fly." The noise was truly dreadful. Then the paper clay drops held onto the kitchen cabinets, the cooker, the microwave. We tickled them with a kitchen cloth, but they wouldn't move, they just giggled. I thought that it was the funniest thing that I had seen in a very long time, but Madeline did not find it funny. No, I didn't. So I quickly snapped my finger and sang the tidy up song for her. I didn't know that Belle had mixed fairy dust into the paper clay, so that explains why it didn't work. Oh, I have to tell you about something else that was truly exciting this week. It's all about that ring we received as a gift from the most beautiful book in the world. You won't believe it. Oh. So here's the story. On Tuesday, Finn and I had gone for a little walk around Mermaid Lake. A few mermaids of Mermaid Lake were happily jumping around in the warm lake water, whilst some were brushing their beautiful green or golden hair at the shore. As you can imagine, Finn and I were incredibly bored. Yes, it was a beautiful day, yes, it was a beautiful spring day, and there were mermaids, but there was nothing to do. The ring of the most beautiful book in the world was still in my pocket. I wonder what this ring does. I put it on my finger and absolutely nothing happened. Finn and I kept walking until we reached a very well-known frog indeed. Mr. Frogler, a very brightly green frog that seemed to sing an awful song. My ears felt as if they could almost understand what he was saying. "Oh, could you please stop making that dreadful noise?" I said. But it came out as "Ribbit, rabbit, 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 rabbit." Mr. Frogler was flabbergasted. "How can you be so rude?" "I was just reciting one of my poems to the sun. It is called An Ode to Frogs." Mr. Frogler angrily jumped into Mermaid Lake. Oh dear, I had been rude, and now I felt quite bad. Mr. Frogler is a pleasant frog. But how could I suddenly speak to him? And why did he understand me? As you might know, fairies cannot normally talk to animals, but we can understand unicorns, of course. "Did that frog just talk to you?" my brother Finn asked. I shook my head. "I don't think so." And we walked on until we met a little mouse. "Cheese, cheese! Where's my cheese?" the mouse said. All Finn could hear was "Squeak!" But all that I could hear was "cheese." "There is some cheese in our fairy kitchen," I said. Strange sounds came out of my mouth, and the mouse said "thank you" and ran off to our house. Just then a butterfly landed on a flower right in front of us. "Would you like to hop on? I can fly you home," it said. Finally I understood. I couldn't believe it. The ring gives me the most magical of all magical superpowers. I can talk to animals. I flew up in joy and did at least 15 somersaults in midair. Once we got home, I quickly looked for Rupert the careless cat and found him yet again on my reading armchair. "Rupert, Rupert, I can finally talk to you," I said to him, but it came out like this. "Meow, meow, 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 meow." But Rupert didn't even stir. Rupert, my careless cat, could you please sleep somewhere else? This is my reading armchair and I need to read my book. Rupert did not even lift one paw. Instead of answering my question, he began to snore. When Finn or I wear the ring, we can understand every single animal apart from our dear Rupert, the careless cat. Maybe cats simply can't be understood. Now, my dear readers, I need to go. My little brother Finn and I are going for a swim in Mermaid Lake. The lake looks so very sparkly today. Maybe that's because of the treasure at the bottom of it. I'm going to have a little chat with the fish about the supposed treasure. I will tell you all about it next week. I've added some extra strong magical reading power fairy dust this week that will also help you with your arts and crafts projects. Have a lovely, read-tastic week. Your Belle. Kiss, kiss. So there you go. And our fairy dust. Are you ready? That was a lot of fairy dust yet again. And let's see what tale our fairy Belle has given us this week. Oh, it's the tale of the Flopsy Bunnies by Beatrix Potter. There you go. Are you ready? Whoop. There it is. It is said that the effect of eating too much lettuce is soporific. I have never felt sleepy after eating lettuces, but then I am not a rabbit. They certainly had a very soporific effect upon the Flopsy Bunnies. Oh, I wonder if we have our pictures up today. The tech support today is really bad. 1 wee second.
Tech support.
It is, so do I have to start again?
No.
We'll find out. I'm just gonna start again, guys, I'm sorry. It is said that the effect of eating too much lettuce is soporific. I have never felt sleepy after eating lettuces, but then I am not a rabbit. They certainly had a very soporific effect upon the Flopsy Bunnies. When Benjamin Bunny grew up, he married his cousin Flopsy. They had a large family and they were very improvident and cheerful. I do not remember the separate names of their children. They were generally called the Flopsy Bunnies. As there was not always quite enough to eat, Benjamin used to borrow cabbages from Flopsy's brother, Peter Rabbit, who kept a nursery garden. Sometimes Peter Rabbit had no cabbages to spare. When this happened, the Flopsy Bunnies went across the field to a rubbish heap in the ditch outside Mr. McGregor's garden. Mr. McGregor's rubbish heap was a mixture. There were jam pots and paper bags and mountains of chopped grass from the mowing machine, which always tasted oily, and some rotten vegetable marrows and an old boot or two. One day, oh joy, there were a quantity of overgrown lettuces which had shot into flower. The Flopsy Bunnies simply stuffed lettuces. By degrees, one after another, they were overcome with slumber, and they lay down in the mown grass. Benjamin was not so much overcome as his children. Before going to sleep, he was sufficiently wide awake to put a paper bag over his head to keep off the flies. The little Flopsy Bunny slept delightfully in the warm sun. From the lawn beyond the garden came the distant clackety sound of the mowing machine. The blue bottles buzzed above the wall, and a little old mouse picked over the rubbish among the jam pots. I can tell you her name. She was called Thomasina Tittlemouse, a wood mouse with a long tail. She rustled across the paper bag and awakened Benjamin Bunny. The mouse apologized profusely and said that she knew Peter Rabbit. While she and Benjamin were talking close under the wall, they heard a heavy tread above their heads, and suddenly Mr. McGregor emptied out a sack full of lawn mowings right upon the top of the sleeping Flopsy bunnies. Benjamin shrunk down under his paper bag. The mouse hid in a jam pot. The little rabbits smiled sweetly in their sleep under the shower of grass. They did not awake because the lettuces had been so soporific. They dreamed that their mother Flopsy was tucking them up in a hay bed. Mr. McGregor looked down after emptying his sack. He saw some funny little brown tips of ears sticking up through the lawn mowings. He stared at them for some time. Presently a fly settled on one of them and it moved. Mr. McGregor climbed down onto the rubbish heap. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 little rabbits, said he as he dropped them into his sack. The Flopsy bunnies dreamt that their mother was turning them over in bed. They stirred a little in their sleep, but still they did not wake up. Mr. McGregor tied up the sack and left it on the wall. He went to put away the mowing machine. While he was gone, Mrs. Flopsy Bunny, who had remained at home, came across the field. She looked suspiciously at the sack and wondered where everybody was. Then the mouse came out of her jam pot, and Benjamin took the paper bag off his head, and they told the doleful tale. Benjamin and Flopsy were in despair. They could not undo the string. But Mrs. Tittlemouse was a resourceful person. She nibbled a hole in the bottom corner of the sack. The little rabbits were pulled out and pinched to wake them. Their parents stuffed the empty sack with 3 rotten vegetable marrows, an old blacking brush, and 2 decayed turnips. Then they all hid under a bush and watched for Mr. McGregor. Mr. McGregor came back and picked up the sack and carried it off. He carried it hanging down as if it were rather heavy. The Flopsy bunnies followed at a safe distance. They watched him go into his house, and then they crept up to the window to listen. Mr. McGregor threw down the sack on the stone floor in a way that would have been extremely painful to the Flopsy bunnies if they had happened to have been inside it. They could hear him drag his chair on the flags and chuckle. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 little rabbits, said Mr. McGregor. Eh, what's that? What have they been spoiling now? Inquired Mrs. McGregor. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 little fat rabbits, repeated Mr. McGregor, counting on his fingers. 1, 2, 3. Don't you be silly. What do you mean, you silly old man? In the sack. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, replied Mr. McGregor. The youngest Flopsy bunny got upon the windowsill. Mrs. McGregor took hold of the sack and felt it. She said she could feel 6, but they must be old rabbits because they were so hard in all different shapes. Not fit to eat, but the skins will do fine to line my old cloak. Line your old cloak, shouted Mr. McGregor. I shall sell them and buy myself baccy. Rabbit tobacco, I shall skin them and cut off their heads. Oh dear. Mrs. McGregor untied the sack and put her hand inside. When she felt the vegetables, she became very, very angry. She said that Mr. McGregor had done it a purpose. And Mr. McGregor was very angry too. One of the rotten marrows came flying through the kitchen window and hit the youngest Flopsy bunny. It was rather hurt. Then Benjamin and Flopsy thought that it was time to go home. So Mr. McGregor did not get his tobacco, and Mrs. McGregor did not get her rabbit skins. But next Christmas, Thomasina Tittlemouse got a present of enough rabbit wool to make herself a cloak and a hood and a handsome muff and a pair of warm mittens. The end. So there you go. I wish you a wonderful sunny week, and yeah, maybe you have some time to do some arts and crafts, and yeah, just send us some photos. We would be delighted to see your projects, or even if you actually make a fairy house, it would be nice to see how it looks. So yeah, thank you very much, and I see you. Belle is somewhere here. We see you next week. Bye bye.